Looking for nerdy news? You're in the right place.
Great. Guy's gonna be late again.
This is the Nerdy News Rundown.
I got plenty of time.
On today's show, Deadpool 2. Apparently the movie might suck. Infinity War. Who's gonna die? Apparently it's gonna be permanent. The Last Jedi. I finished the novel and the Blu Ray's coming out tomorrow. We're going over all of that and your questions.
I'm gonna be late!
I'm your host, Josh Lucas, broadcasting live from Uncanny in the King of Prussia Mall, Philadelphia. Let's get this show started. Oh man, oh man, oh man, what is up, all of you beautiful nerds around the world? I'm, of course, Josh. It's the Nerdy News Rundown. Guys, I'm sorry about the delay. I was actually trying to go live today, but the internet's acting all funky, so we're going to try to figure that out and hopefully be able to figure out going live Wednesday. I do want to say, of course, shout out to Uncanny for sponsoring the show, being a big part of what we're doing here on the channel. They are amazing. We're going to be rolling out some cool stuff to get people in here and give a benefit to people that watch the show if you want to go buy some of their stuff online. So look for that launching really quickly in the week. I do need to say, though, there's not going to be an episode tomorrow. I know everyone's real upset about it, but there's actually another stupid nor'easter coming towards Philadelphia, and on top of that, apparently there's going to be an Infinity War trailer that drops tomorrow, and I'm going to do some videos breaking that down, but I'm actually just going to take tomorrow to sort of get some stuff figured out so that we can have a better show moving forward. So thanks to everybody that's been supporting the show. There's not going to be an episode tomorrow. We will be back on Wednesday breaking down all of that Avengers Infinity War stuff. And just last thing before we get into the first topic, we have actually launched a Patreon for the channel. So if you've been checking out the stuff we've been doing on the channel, if you've been liking what we're doing, you want to help support us and help us take this to the next level, consider checking out the Patreon. There's a ton of cool stuff. I'm actually going to put a tour of the store today, of the King of Prussia store. As soon as I get off of this show, I'm going to go around and record a nice tour of this, and it's going to go up for Patreon people. So if you want to go check that out, do so. It'll be available for Patreons later in the day. Okay, so let's get into the first topic of the day. This is kind of a crazy story. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. I'm sure you're going to be, obviously, because you're watching the show, but it's going to be something people are talking about online. This has to do with Deadpool 2. Apparently, the movie is no good. I know, that's kind of crazy to hear, but they've been doing some screenings, and there are some people out there talking about it online, and they're saying it's a hot mess, like X-Men 3 level of a hot mess. And I wanted to get into this for a couple different reasons. Obviously, you know, I liked the Deadpool movie. Deadpool 1 was awesome, and even though I'm not a huge fan of the character from the comic books, it was one of the most accurate depictions of a comic book character I've ever seen in film. So it was really, really cool. But part of the magic formula for that film was Tim Miller. Tim Miller was a producer and a director and a writer on the first Deadpool movie. Tim Miller is a huge nerd. He's actually done a lot of stuff in video games. So like the Injustice trailer and that famous where the Superman rips out the heart of the Joker and kills him. That was done by Tim Miller and his studio. A lot of the Arkham games and their cinematics and stuff was done by Tim Miller. Tim Miller's very active in superhero stuff. And you might recall that during the production and the setup for Deadpool 2, the studio decided to go a different way. Tim Miller left that project, was sort of ousted, depending on what reports you believe, and Ryan Reynolds and the team over there kind of gained complete control of that film. Okay, and so Tim Miller's off doing his own thing right now. He's actually working on a movie with Brian Michael Bendis. I'm super interested in that. But he is also doing the next Terminator movie, which is really cool. Everybody's very excited. But here's the thing when it comes to Deadpool 2. when I heard that the screenings are being received pretty poorly and that people are not super into that stuff, I wasn't really that surprised because to me personally, one of the things that made that movie so good was Tim Miller's involvement. And as a creative and as a filmmaker and as a huge nerd, Tim was integral in making Deadpool 1 what it ended up being. And so when you remove a guy like that and you give sort of more Hollywood-esque type entities more control over your property, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that the movie suffered. And so what exactly are people saying? Like, what's the problem with it? Well, first of all, most of them are under like NDAs. They can't like come right out and say it. But what is being reported online is that the movie is about a half hour too long. The plot is just super messy, makes next to no sense, and it just feels like a big jumbled mess. And so, you know, look, the humor in Deadpool is sort of part of it, right? It makes sense. But if you were just to focus on that and not give an overarching story, that's going to be really, really weak. Also, like Cable introduced such an interesting opportunity for them to do this time travel thing, for them to go, from the future back into Deadpool, show some ramifications, jump around, do some really interesting stuff, Terminator style, by the way. And it would appear that that's something that was completely mishandled. And I'm really hoping that they don't just ruin this Cable character because Brolin's performance, from what I've seen in the trailers, looks dope as hell. I'm also hearing that they totally just ruined the Vanessa character. And I don't know how you do that. She's such an important part of the first movie, and that love story is so important. And so I'm interested to see like how she is treated as a character. But that's the report out there, guys. The report is that Deadpool 2 is going to be no bueno. So, man, I'm really hoping that there's a way for them to turn this around, but it's pretty late in the game. The movie is going to come out. So even though there might be some reshoots, like small pickups here or there, they're not going to be able to give this movie a complete facelift. Like, that's just not going to happen. And so I'm pretty interested in, like, what's going to happen with this Deadpool movie. Now, here's the thing. I'll be completely honest. Real talk. I almost secretly hope that this movie fails. Because I think you need to send a message to Hollywood that you can't just like eliminate these creative pillars that literally your success rested upon. And you have these ideas that you can sort of just do whatever and it's going to be successful. And so I hope, honestly, that the movie's not that good. Now, financially, I think it'll be okay. If it's as bad as people are saying, it'll have a huge opening weekend and then drop off dramatically, which will be, once again, another signal to the studio. But also, Deadpool's success is one of the things that has made the Fox Marvel deal very difficult to navigate. And the future of what the MCU would look like with the Fox characters, including Deadpool, but also X-Force, X-Men, that is sort of in flux because of the success of Deadpool. So it's one of those weird things where like success can sort of be a bad thing, right? I think similarly, the situation with Wonder Woman at DC, that's a problem too, because if that movie wasn't so good, if that movie wasn't so successful, they would just reboot. It would be completely fine. They would just reboot. Wouldn't be a big deal. They're sort of forced to have her still in the limelight, to have that connective tissue, to do something with that because of the success. So I think the same thing is happening with the Deadpool movie. And man, like when this happened, there was one of two sides you were going to fall on. You were going to be either Team Ryan Reynolds or Team Deadpool. And although they're consummate professionals and they were both really good about it online, I was Team Tim Miller the whole way. Now, that's not to underplay the contributions that Reynolds has made. Obviously, big part of it, took a huge pay cut to do the role, was leaking, footage to get it propped up. He was doing all sorts of stuff and, writing, acting. His contribution was huge. I'm not trying to downplay that. But I think as far as the film itself, the tissue of the film, the thing that made it such a good movie, I think that a lot of that had to do with Tim Miller. And I guess we're going to have to wait and see until we see the movie. And I should mention, too, these are just rumors at this point. Nothing is confirmed. But I tend to look at that and be like, okay, this makes sense to me, exiting of Tim Miller, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool on shaky ground. So that is the story out there, guys. That's the first topic of the day. I'm very curious very, very curious about what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comment section below. Have you heard about this? Do you think that Deadpool 2 is going a bad way? Like, does this seem like a reality to you? Or do you think it's just rumors, people just speculating? We can't really take it too seriously. Very curious to hear what you guys think about this. And which side did you fall on when it came to the Tim Miller, Ryan Reynolds sort of infighting that was the Deadpool 2 production? So please hit me up about all of that in the comment section below. Very, very interested. Now, let's get into our second topic of the day, and it is, of course, Infinity War. I mean, what else, right? We are rolling, heading towards Avengers Infinity War, which is going to be probably the biggest movie of all time, in my opinion. Is absolute craziness what they are able to accomplish and what they have set up for this movie. But as we get closer and closer, we are getting more promotional material. By the way, there's going to be behind-the-scenes footage tonight on Entertainment Weekly. I'm definitely going to break it down, do some videos. I plan on just doing Avengers Infinity War videos pretty much all day tomorrow, which is sort of another reason why I'm not going to do a show. I need to get some stuff handled, you know what I mean, kind of take care of business and set up some dope Infinity War stuff for all of you guys. But there's going to be behind-the-scenes stuff tonight on Entertainment Tonight. Then tomorrow, we are supposed to be getting the next trailer. So I would do a reaction. I'll do a breakdown. I'm going to do so much content. I'll probably get on a video with James or whatever and do a lot of stuff when it comes to Avengers Infinity War. But specific to this story, what I wanted to talk about was some stuff that Kevin Feige said, some stuff that RDJ said with regards to death in Infinity War. They have said that there will be Avengers that die and that those deaths are going to be permanent. Now, this is a big deal for a couple of different reasons. One, the MCU has had a problem with stakes. The heroes always seem to win. There's not too much serious implications. Characters just come back. You have injuries. They're sort of healed. All this sort of stuff. So the stakes are kind of, they're not considered realistic. And so when it comes to death in this movie, it would be a natural sort of extension for us to believe, okay, yeah, there will be some death, but they could just bring these people back. I mean, they got the soul gem. They have that rebuilder, what they did with Hawkeye and his body, which I think they're actually going to use to give Thor his eye back. But there's all sorts of ways in which, that you will not see the actual death be a permanent thing. And that sort of takes away from it, right? It makes it have less oomph when you think that that's going to happen. And so to sort of counter this and to sort of like put it out there for people, they're coming out and saying death is going to happen in the Infinity War movies. And I think they're talking about part 1 and part 2. And that death is going to be permanent. Also from like a contractual side, that sort of makes a lot of sense, right? A lot of these actors are sort of nearing the end of their contract. And I think we're going to shift into a whole new Avengers lineup where things like Bucky will kind of be Cap. You will see Falcon, come in. I can even see Shuri sort of taking the place of Iron Man eventually down the road. Different things like that. I think you're going to see a new face of Avengers with Black Panther, Spider-Man, Doc Strange will continue to play a big role. But they're sort of passing the baton, and it makes a lot of sense. Now, who do I think is going to die in Infinity War? Well, I mean, come on, let's talk about RDJ, right? I mean, Robert Downey Jr., the guy that sort of launched this whole thing, he also gets paid buku bucks, crazy town money for every single outing. So just, think logically, it probably makes a lot of sense for them to be like, well, we don't want to have Robert Downey Jr. in these movies anymore. Now, automatically, a lot of people sort of reel at this idea. They're like, oh, no. You need Robert Downey Jr. in the Avengers. Without him, there's going to be this big hole left behind. And I think there's a really cool solution in which you could sort of have him become the AI that is used for the Avengers, but also in the suit of whomever takes the place of Iron Man. And so I think this would be a way to transition him out, have him as a character die, and yet still have his voice remain as sort of the AI. Like I said, I think that would be very, very useful. That'd be a cool way out of it. I hope they do that. But plainly, I think it makes a lot of sense for him to die. And I'm pretty darn sure that's something a lot of people are aware of, and they consider that to be sort of the way that it's going to go. So I think at the top of my death watch list is Iron Man. He'll probably have to make some kind of a big sacrifice and pass on. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the first movie or in the second movie, But yeah, I'm pretty sure Tony Stark is not long for this world. Now, right behind him becomes Captain America, and I think it's a similar thing, man. You might even see a situation where all of your Phase One characters die, and it almost kind of makes sense, right? Like sort of a swan song for them. They've been a part of this huge thing, and they could be legacy characters that the new Avengers sort of look to, and they're like, "Yo, like remember those guys, the guys that came together." And also, by the way, would give some real feels watching Avengers 1 again when you realize that the main crew, the trifecta of Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, if you realize that they are no more, whew, man, it's going to be emotional watching that movie over and over again, which, let's be honest, we all do anyways. But so I would say those three are sort of on my list. Hawkeye is another one. It's sort of an interesting thing. There's been some leaked footage that kind of implies that he'll be the Ronin character. So some people think maybe his family dies and it shifts him into a whole new way. That would be cool. The Ronin character is cool. Hawkeye is cool. So I wouldn't mind him sticking around. I think Black Widow is safe. All of the newer people I think are safe. Like this includes Peter Parker, Doctor Strange, T'Challa. They're not going to kill Black Panther. I mean, it's a money pit at this point, and I think the way they're going to go now is he's going to play a major role in the Avengers moving forward, and I'm so excited for that. But so I would say those guys, that's pretty much where I leave it. I think that your main three are gone. There's a way for them to exit Thor without him dying and have him just go do something else, be in charge of Asgard, and sort of keep him out of the movies because he said his contract is up, and as of right now, we know that he hasn't re-signed. Now, there's so much spoilery stuff that's going to happen in Infinity War. Marvel has taken special precautions, including moving the movie to a worldwide release date on April 27th, and I think part of that has to do with spoilers. So there's big stuff coming. Duh. I think it's deaths. I think they're permanent deaths, and I think that the move of the date is part of that formula. So that's the story that's out there. Permanent death in the MCU. They're not just going to come back, but then again, comic book thing to say that something is permanent and sort of walk back on that. I mean, Dan Slott said famously that Peter was gone for good in the Superior Spider-Man run, and he said he kind of jokes about like looking young kids in the face and watching them tear up as he tells them that Peter's never coming back and that it was a really hard thing for him to do. I don't know, Dan, you seem kind of sadistic, so you might like it, but that's an interesting thing, right? So it's possible that they're going to say that it's permanent, and then like literally 6 years down the line, they bring them back in some way. And I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't be upset about it, but I do think that you need permanent stakes. You need permanent death. So that's the story out there, guys. What do you think about it? Do you agree that these are going to be permanent deaths? Does this raise the anticipation for you for Infinity War? Who do you think's going to die? My list is the original three, the trilogy, the trifecta, the trinity, if you will, of the Phase 1, 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, rather. Sorry. But yeah, so that's my pick, but I definitely want to know what you guys think about that. Hit me up in the comment section below. Who you think's gonna die in the Infinity Wars, okay? So let's get into our next topic. This one, kind of a smaller topic, but I definitely wanted to touch on it because I do like the X-Men movies. There were some set photos. Here's one of them from the Dark Phoenix movie. And people have pointed out that these new uniforms that they're wearing are very Frank Quitely from the new X-Men run. That was a Grant Morrison run. I absolutely love that run in the comics, and the uniforms themselves definitely look very Frank Quitely. And so, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing. There's not too much to glean from it. I don't think they're going to be taking a lot of like story beats, elements of that nature from the new X-Men comics. It would be cool if they did. Now, what's funny is the leather and all that. That actually comes from a Grant Morrison run as well. And I think that Frank Quitely did that too. So even in the original X-Men movie, the way they decided to depict the X-Men was inspired by that similar team up. And as far as Dark Phoenix goes itself, I mean, I'm hearing that it's a really good movie and very science fiction and opening. There was a rumor that this movie was going to be a trilogy or that was going to have multiple installments, which could just be a sequel or something like that. It's all kind of hinging upon the Fox Disney deal, right? We don't know what that's actually going to look like. What does that mean for the future of those X-Men? A lot of people, including myself, think the best part of Apocalypse was the new X-Men that we're introduced to, Jubilee, the young Cyclops, Jean Grey, and all of those cats. So it's interesting to see that we're going to be going that way. But I don't know. I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit. I'm excited for the Dark Phoenix movie. Man, what a prolific comic book story for them to attack, and I just hope that they nail it the right way because they if they screw that up, it's a similar situation to the Deadpool thing, right? Like they have caught lightning in a bottle a couple times with the X-Men movies. People like that franchise a lot. I'm into it, man. Some of those movies are dope, and I really do like the flavor. Like Days of Future Past is probably my favorite one, kind of behind Logan because I almost consider it out of that world. But I love what they do with those characters and those movies. Dark Phoenix should be the same thing. I mean, Sophie Turner is a great actress. I think she's going to be a great Phoenix and a great Jean Grey. But it's like those are some of my favorite toys. So when I see people playing with them, I get a little nervous. I'm like, oh, I don't know about all that. That could be bad. So that's not a lead story. Not a lot to glean, but that's the image out there. It looks like some Frank Quietly stuff. I mean, I think the uniforms look dope. What do all of you think about that? Hit me up at the comment section, and in general, give me your thoughts about like the Fox X-Men. What do you think about that? How do you think they're going to handle that in the MCU? Any questions? And if you have something specific you want me to talk about, drop a question in the comment section here, and we will cover it on Wednesday's show or on a show in the future. I want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. That's part of the fun for me with this whole thing. Okay, so let's get into the last official topic of the day. This is The Last Jedi. So I finished the novelization. I think it is fantastic. There's a lot of good in there. I dropped a bonus video yesterday for Star Wars Sunday, going in depth about the connection between Kylo and Rey and her power specifically, and how that sort of comes from Kylo. Kylo sort of does something with the mind melding sort of thing that unlocks all these doors. She gains access to his training and kind of instinctually knows how to use his power. I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of good stuff in the book, but I will say, as far as the romantic connection that we were looking for with the Reylo, I don't know if it's there. Like, really, I expected more of it, and I don't know if they're holding stuff close to the vest or if that's really not the direction they're going to go. The one thing that sort of was really weird was at the end when they have that one more force connection. Kylo's holding the dice. It says that Rey severs the connection. I hope that's not permanent. I hope it was just like hanging up on that call at that moment. Because man, if that's permanent, that's rough. A lot of the Reylo community is going to be sad about that. But overall, I thought the novelization was brilliant. It fills out so much for it. And I know I got a lot of comments from people being like, well, why wasn't this in the movie? This almost doesn't count. I'm so upset that they didn't talk about this, and that. And I agree with you. Like, I think a lot of that should have been in the movie, but it wasn't. And so, I think the novelization serves to expand that, to really bring some just cool stuff out there. So many cool little tidbits. Like, for instance, talking about how Poe trained on Yavin, and which is obvious, right? Because he grew up on Yavin. His mother went on the mission with Skywalker. They talk about the Force tree. They talk about all that in the novelization. Like, kudos to Jason Fry. But one little piece of that was cool was Poe trains among Death Star debris. That's obvious, but think about a young Poe above Yavin, literally flying amongst the debris of the Death Star to hone his training. That is really, really cool. They also had this one cool thing where Hux was talking about how part of the legacy of the Jedi is in the First Order. And this was that the Jedi would go around and find Force-sensitive kids, Force-sensitive children, and scoop them up and make them into Jedi. And this was twofold. This was to prevent the Sith from doing this and these kids to becoming like dark side users and stuff like that, but also because the kids were young and impressionable and they wanted to mold them into the way of the Jedi. Hux uses that same ideology for the stormtroopers in the First Order. I thought that was incredible. So overall, the novel is great. There's a lot of content in there that I'm going to break down, do videos for, so look forward to all of that. But the Blu Ray for The Last Jedi comes out tomorrow, and I am so excited to get my hands on that thing. I want to listen to the director's commentary. I want to see all the deleted scenes. There's so much in there that I'm looking forward to. Overall, too, I'm really excited to watch the movie again. I think I saw it 5 times in theaters. I'm a big Star Wars fan. You guys probably already know this, but I saw it 5 times in theaters. I love the movie, but I haven't seen it in a long while, right? And so now that there's some space, I want to go into it again, just consider my feelings, go through it, talk about what I like, talk about what I don't like. I might do a commentary for it, and let me know if that's something you want me to do. I might do a commentary, drop it on the Patreon for people. Um, but if people want to watch it on the channel, I can do that as well. But there's a lot of good stuff in there, deleted scenes, a lot of featurette stuff about the effects and different things like that. So I can't wait to dig into that. Let me know, are you guys excited to dig into that? Have you finished the novel? Where are you at with The Last Jedi? Do you still hate it and think Rian Johnson ruined Star Wars, or are you coming around to it? One thing that was very interesting is I saw a lot of people, and maybe not a lot might be the wrong word, but I saw people commenting on my videos saying, your video has helped sort of shift my opinion about some things when it comes to The Last Jedi. And I'm really happy to hear that sort of stuff. I don't want to influence people's opinions, but I just want to bring in different perspectives and allow people to have sort of a better look at things so that they can formulate their own opinions. The Last Jedi is not perfect. Filmmaking is not perfect. The movie took chances, but some of the things I think we were pissed about, there's explanations for out there. And I know you wanted it in the movie, so did I. But the novel does a great job of filling that out. I'm looking forward to seeing if there's anything within this viewing, the next viewing I have of it, that also sticks out to me. And I'll talk to you guys about all of that. But I wanted to go into that, talk about The Last Jedi, because I'm pumped about it. So let me know, guys, what are your thoughts about the novelization? What are your thoughts about the Blu-ray release? And, drop your feelings and comments in the section down below. Very excited to get into all of that. Okay, let's get into fan questions. I just have one fan question today, and it's from John Rosman. I can't pronounce your name, so I've tried several times. John, incredibly good sport about things. I keep not pronouncing his name correctly, and he's super cool about it. But he's asking about Thrawn. So essentially his question is, now that he's kind of trapped with Ezra, and we know that he lives because Dave Filoni said yes, do we think that Thrawn will have a different opinion about the Force, or sort of be enlightened when it comes to the Force? That's sort of the question there. And so this is an interesting question. I wanted to get into it. Thrawn is one of my favorite characters. And considering something else that John brings up, considering that he has experiences with the Bendu, considering that he has hung out with Vader and Anakin Skywalker, by the way, and the Emperor, and says to Ezra Bridger in the finale of Rebels that he must admit that the Force literally confuses him. The question becomes, will Thrawn be more accepting of the Force in the future, and where does the Alliance book come from? So first of all, John, let me answer the Alliance question. Alliance is going to take place before Rebels. I'm pretty darn sure, because he's hanging out with Vader on a mission. And so I think that novel will take place before the finale of Rebels. But your question is sound, and I think it's a really interesting one. What is Ezra and Thrawn going to be doing post-Rebels? And I truly believe that they're going to have to work together. That essentially the space whales are going to drop them somewhere. They're going to have to kind of collect their forces. A lot of people are probably going to pass. Imperials and Ezra and Thrawn are going to have to work together. Thrawn is a brilliant dude, and I think he will understand that, and he will realize he needs Ezra Bridger. Ezra is crazy and crazy powerful in the Force. And the thing is, if all the hyperdrives are down and the space whales are their only way to jump around, then Thrawn's going to need Ezra because he can't communicate with the space whales. You know what I mean? So it sort of could be an interesting dynamic between them. But in general, to address the Force question, I think Thrawn has always had a respect for the Force and a respect for what it's capable of. I also believe that the threat that Thrawn fears, the reason he came into our galaxy in the first place, is a Force-based threat. I think it is dark side, perhaps a new version of the Rakata Empire, the Yukon Vong, something like that. And so I think Thrawn is incredibly aware of the Force, and he has a lot of reverence for it. But I do think there is something to your question, because being trapped with Ezra, wanting to be a student of it, and maybe trying to help Ezra, because remember how he took Eli and sort of mentored him and made him realize things, be a more logical thinker, more strategic. He literally groomed him to replace himself in the Chiss Higher Ascendancy. So cool, by the way. But there could be a similar situation going on between Ezra and Thrawn. and Ezra could pass on some Force knowledge to Thrawn, which Thrawn would probably really like because he thinks that threat is Force based, right? Remember, he was asking the Bendu, "What manner of creature are you?" Blah blah blah. He wants to learn. He's like a sponge for information, and so I think that that's interesting. He could be gaining something from Ezra, and I think he could similarly Ezra Bridger a thing or two about strategy, which depending on where that character goes in the arc after that, you could see a thing where Ezra plays a major role in perhaps the rebuilt Jedi. Maybe he comes to find Rey, they connect, and they formulate the new Jedi, and he has now strategery, as W would say, and so maybe that could be beneficial. I love the question, John, as always, and thank you for being so active and such a supporter of what we do here at the Den. But I hope that answers your question and gives you some cool things to think about because I love the idea. I'm so excited to see what is going on with those characters. Sabine, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Thrawn. That is something I need that. And I'm really hoping that's the next series from Dave and that it will take place before The Force Awakens. That is such a cool thing. I want these storylines to converge. I want a new area of canon moving forward that we can all be excited about together. I think that would solve that. So that's my answer to your question, my little diatribe about what I think is going on there. But that's going to do it for today's show, everybody. I want to shout out Uncanny again. These guys are awesome. I love being in here. I love doing all this stuff. I'm going to do a tour of the store and put it on the Patreon. So that video will go up later today. Please consider, if you got some loot, consider checking out the Patreon. That support is going to go a long way for us on the channel. We're trying to expand. Justin's doing really interesting stuff. My editor works tirelessly for not a lot of money. I'd love to be able to give him a little bit more dough. So if you like what we're doing here and you want to know more about the vision for what I have for this thing, check out the Patreon. That's where it goes down. That's where the hardcore Den people go. So that's it. That's my shameless plug for the day, I guess. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. No show, though. Show resumes on Wednesday. Bye.